Imagine a place where the world ends. A desolate rock fortress, encircled by an ocean so vast, so merciless, it became the ultimate wall. This was the island of no return, a remote penal colony, purpose-built to extinguish hope, where justice was delivered with a heavy hand, and freedom was a forgotten word. For countless souls cast onto its barren shores, this isolated prison was their tomb, a final, unyielding stop on the journey of life. The daily grind was brutal. Back-breaking labor under a scorching sun, meager rations, constant surveillance, and a gnawing despair that slowly, inexorably devoured the spirit. Escape was not merely difficult. It was deemed impossible. The roaring currents, the treacherous storms, the sheer, unimaginable distance from any habitable land made any attempt a suicide mission. The very thought of it was heresy, a fantasy too dangerous to entertain. Yet, in the darkest corners of this living hell, a flicker of defiance refused to die. A whispered dream, audacious beyond belief, began to take root. What if the ocean, their jailer, could also be their liberator? What if they could not only defy the guards, the chains, the walls, but also the very forces of nature designed to hold them captive? This is the extraordinary saga of men condemned, who dared to look beyond the horizon, not for death, but for deliverance. This documentary, spanning 36 incredible chapters, will delve into the clandestine ingenuity, the unbreakable bonds of brotherhood, and the sheer, unfathomable courage that fueled an unprecedented maritime escape. We will uncover the secrets of how, against all odds, a band of prisoners, with nothing but their wits and stolen scraps, meticulously constructed a ship in the very heart of their confinement, and launched themselves into the terrifying unknown. Prepare to witness a testament to the human spirit's refusal to be broken, an epic voyage born of desperation, and an enduring quest for the most fundamental of all human rights, freedom. Imagine a place where the world ends, not with a whimper, but with the relentless crash of an unforgiving ocean against jagged, ancient rock. This is Black Reef Island, a speck of land marooned in the vast, indifferent expanse of the Pacific, established as a penal colony in 1903. For the men condemned here, it was the ultimate exile, a natural fortress. Its sheer cliffs and treacherous currents formed an inescapable barrier more formidable than any stone wall. Here, hope withered under the equatorial sun, and the relentless wind seemed to carry only the cries of gulls and the faint, unsettling echo of their own lost futures. Every arrival, a ship disappearing into the horizon, marked not a journey's end, but the beginning of an eternal sentence in a desolate, natural hell. For thousands, Black Reef Island was truly the island of no return. Life on Black Reef Island was a monotonous cycle of brutal, back-breaking labor. From dawn's first gray light until the last searing rays of sunset, men toiled under the merciless gaze of armed guards. Their days were spent quarrying stone, felling sparse, tough timber, or hauling heavy supplies across the island's unforgiving terrain. Rations were meager, watery gruel, stale bread, barely enough to sustain the relentless physical demands. Every swing of a pickaxe, every drop of sweat, chipped away not just at the island's stubborn rock, but at the spirit of the men themselves. Surveillance was constant, discipline severe, and infractions met with swift, brutal punishment. It was a dehumanizing existence designed to crush any flicker of individuality, any whisper of defiance. For years, this was their reality, a living death without end. Yet, even in the deepest despair, the human spirit, however fractured, sometimes finds a way to resist. Amidst the daily torment, a new kind of madness began to stir. A whisper, then a murmur, of an escape so audacious, so utterly impossible, it seemed born of fevered dreams. To build a ship, to construct a vessel large enough, sturdy enough to brave the Pacific's wrath, using nothing but what a barren island and desperate men could provide. Most dismissed it as lunacy, an express ticket to the gallows. But for a desperate few, a spark ignited. A flicker of hope in the vast darkness, daring them to look beyond the relentless daily grind, beyond the unforgiving cliffs, and out towards the distant, beckoning horizon, where freedom lay an eternity away. Among the ranks of the condemned, one man possessed the extraordinary vision and the practical knowledge to transform this impossible dream into a tangible plan. His name was John Miller, a former shipwright from the bustling docks of Sydney, imprisoned for a crime of passion, not malice. Miller, a quiet observer, had spent his years on Black Reef not just enduring, but studying. He saw the driftwood on the beaches, the resilient timber in the sparse forests, the very rock formations of the island as potential resources. While others saw only confinement, Miller saw the raw materials for a vessel. With scraps of charcoal and scavenged paper, he began to sketch, to calculate, to conceive the blueprints of their improbable salvation, his mind a whirlwind of dimensions, stresses, and the unforgiving laws of the sea. John Miller became the quiet architect of their impossible hope. Miller knew he couldn't build a ship alone. He needed men, not just willing, but capable. His recruitment was a perilous dance, each whispered conversation a risk of exposure. He sought out specific skills. Big Bear Riley, a powerful lumberjack who could fell trees and move colossal timbers. Silas the Foxcroft, whose cunning eyes missed nothing, making him an invaluable lookout and master of diversion. And young Finn, nimble and agile, ideal for climbing. But beyond skill, Miller sought trust, an absolute, unwavering loyalty born of shared desperation. These men, scarred by their pasts and bound by a common, impossible future, formed the core of the escape committee. Each knew that discovery meant death, but the promise of freedom, however faint, was a currency stronger than any fear. With the crew assembled, the daunting task began, finding the raw materials on a seemingly barren island. Every work detail became a scavenging expedition. While supposedly quarrying rock, they'd meticulously scan the beach for driftwood, pieces of cedar or pine, precious and rare, washed ashore from distant lands. Forgotten wrecks, partially submerged in treacherous reefs, became gold mines for rusted iron fittings, copper sheets, or lengths of resilient rope. Metal scraps from abandoned tools, tar seepage from volcanic vents, even tough fibers from native plants. Every fragment was considered, every potential resource evaluated. It was an exercise in extreme ingenuity, a desperate treasure hunt where the treasure was nothing less than their lives, extracted piece by agonizing piece from the island's clutches, all under the ever-present threat of discovery. Gathering materials was only half the battle. How do you build a ship when you possess no saws, no hammers, no chisels? The answer lay in a raw, desperate ingenuity. John Miller and his crew transformed their meager findings into the very instruments of their liberation. Rocks became crude hammers. Heated and hammered scraps of metal from defunct machinery were painstakingly sharpened into saw blades, often shattering and needing to be reforged countless times. They learned to temper metal over hidden fires fueled by scavenged charcoal, enduring burns and blisters, their faces grimed with soot. Every strike, every grind, was a testament to their unwavering will. These were not precision instruments, but they were tools born of defiance, each one a small victory against the overwhelming odds, shaping not just wood and metal, but their very destiny. With materials amassed and rudimentary tools forged, the final, crucial puzzle piece was the shipyard itself. To construct a vessel large enough for escape, yet remain utterly invisible to their captors, required an almost unbelievable feat of concealment. Miller's crew discovered a secluded cave system, partially submerged at high tide, accessible only by a hidden path through dense, thorny scrubland. It was a natural cathedral, its echoing chambers providing both shelter and perfect acoustic isolation. Here, deep within the earth, under the cloak of night and the watchful eyes of Silas Croft, their impossible dreams slowly, silently began to take shape. Every plank nailed, Every seam caulked was a whispered promise of freedom, built in the dark, hidden heart of the island that had sworn to hold them forever. Deep within the unforgiving heart of the island, a new rhythm began to emerge, not of picks and shovels, but of saws and hammers. It was the winter of 1877 when the impossible dream took its first tangible breath. Under the clandestine leadership of Elias Thorne, a former shipwright, the rough-hewn keel, painstakingly carved from a fallen ironwood tree, was finally laid. Each plank, salvaged or secretly felled, was planed and fitted with desperate precision, transforming the abstract vision into a nascent reality. The skeletal ribs of what would become the freedom's promise began to curve skyward, a silent testament to an unyielding will. For the men who toiled in secret, the growing hull wasn't just wood and nails. It was a beacon, a tangible vessel for their shattered hopes, slowly taking form against the crushing weight of their despair. This was the point of no return. The ship now had a form, and with it, an irreversible commitment. Every creak of the jungle, every distant shout, sent a jolt of ice through the prisoner's veins. The omnipresent thread of discovery was a suffocating blanket. Captain Richter's patrols, precise and relentless, scouring the perimeter of the camp and its immediate surroundings. The men learned to move like ghosts, their senses sharpened by terror and necessity. A network of crude tripwires and bird calls acted as an early warning system, granting them precious seconds to vanish into the dense undergrowth, or camouflage their precious work with a hastily thrown tarpaulin of leaves. There were countless close calls, the crunch of boots nearing their hidden clearing, the glint of a lantern beam dancing precariously close to their secret shipyard. Each averted disaster, each heart-stopping moment, only reinforced the colossal stakes of their gamble, pushing them further into the shadows and deeper into their shared conspiracy. Survival in a penal colony was an education in deception, a skill honed to an art form by these desperate men. To further divert suspicion from their hidden shipyard, the prisoners devised elaborate cover stories and engaged in seemingly innocuous activities. They requested permission to fell specific trees for building a new communal latrine or repairing the existing barracks roof, thereby justifying the accumulation of timber. A group might openly fish along the coast, their nets concealing scavenged sailcloth, while others cleared overgrown paths that conveniently led closer to their secret construction site. Overseer Callahan, notorious for his distrust, was often placated by community projects that subtly served the escape plan. Every interaction, every request, every visible act was a calculated performance, a meticulously crafted facade designed to lull their captors into a false sense of security, masking the audacious ambition thriving beneath their very noses. Building a vessel of this magnitude demanded an astronomical toll, not just in labor, but in the very essence of their survival. By mid-1878, every scrap of metal, every morsel of food became a critical decision point. The prisoners, already subsisting on meager rations of gruel and dried fish, voluntarily surrendered portions of their precious food for the collective good. Iron tools, essential for the ship, were prioritized over the small, personal comforts that might offer a momentary respite. The men grew gaunt, their eyes sunken, their bodies aching with perpetual hunger and crushing fatigue, yet their resolve hardened. The sacrifices were immense. Warm clothing given up to line a hull seam, hours of sleep foregone to work under the cloak of night. This wasn't merely construction. It was a profound act of collective sacrifice, a desperate investment of their remaining life force into a single, improbable dream of freedom. To build a ship was one thing. To sail it across a vast, unforgiving ocean was an entirely different, terrifying proposition. Few among the prisoners possessed true maritime expertise. Yet, within their ranks was Old Man Finnegan, a grizzled former whaler, whose memory of celestial navigation was painstakingly pieced together from whispered conversations and crude drawings scratched on a scavenged parchment. They studied the movements of the stars, memorized constellations, and attempted to fabricate a rudimentary sextant from prison-issue tin and glass. The plan wasn't just to escape the island. It was to navigate hundreds, perhaps thousands, of miles to a distant, uncharted freedom. This intellectual challenge, as formidable as the physical one, demanded a different kind of courage, the audacity to chart a course into a world they had only dreamt of, guided by fading memories and a boundless hope. The ship needed not just a hull, but a heart to propel it across the open sea. Crafting the rigging, the masts, sails, and lines became a monumental undertaking in late 1878. The main mast, painstakingly shaped from the tallest tree they dared to fell, was a colossal challenge to hoist and secure. For sails, prison blankets, old uniforms, and any scavenged canvas scraps were meticulously unpicked, washed, and then sewn together, stitch by laborious stitch, into a patchwork of defiance. The men became master weavers, knot tiers and riggers, their calloused hands transforming brittle threads into ropes strong enough to withstand the ocean's fury. Every piece of rope, every grommet, every cleat, was born of necessity and ingenuity, a testament to their unwavering belief that these humble materials would one day catch the wind and carry them to a new dawn, far from the island of no return, beyond the ever-present human threat. Nature itself seemed determined to crush their burgeoning hope. The tropical storm season, particularly a brutal deluge in early 1879, brought construction to a standstill, nearly washing away months of painstaking work. Torrential rains turned their hidden clearing into a quagmire of mud, rotting wood, and despair. Tools were lost, planks warped, and the sheer effort of working in the relentless downpour was physically and mentally draining. The freedom's promise lay exposed, battered by winds and water, a stark reminder of the ocean's raw power. Yet, with each successive storm, their resolve only hardened. They learned to build temporary shelters, to channel water, to secure their unfinished vessel against nature's wrath. Every drop of rain became a lesson, every gust of wind a test, forging a resilience that would be vital for the journey ahead. The immense pressure of the secret, the relentless labor, and the gnawing hunger inevitably began to fray the delicate bonds within the group. By the spring of 1879, cracks appeared in their unified facade. Arguments erupted over rations, over perceived slights, over the sheer, unbearable weight of the gamble they were taking. Despair was a seductive whisper in the darkest hours, leading some to question the sanity of their impossible dream. Elias Thorne, their quiet leader, often found himself mediating heated disputes, reminding them of the shared vision, the alternative, a life of certain death on the island. These moments of internal strife were perhaps as dangerous as any guard patrol, threatening to unravel their conspiracy from within. But each time, the shared purpose, the sheer impossibility of giving up, pulled them back from the brink, reaffirming their desperate, fragile pact. As the clandestine vessel, painstakingly crafted over months, neared completion in the hidden cove, the air crackled with a new urgency. This was no longer just about building, it was about survival. The crew, led by the pragmatic Elias, meticulously worked to seal every seam and crevice. Thick, pungent tar, painstakingly rendered from pine sap and smuggled coal, was brushed onto every plank, a dark, protective skin against the unforgiving ocean. Caulking tools sharpened prison spoons, tapped rhythmically, driving oakum, strands of old rope, into every gap. Provisions pilfered and hoarded with audacious cunning, dried fish, hardtack, and precious casks of fresh water, were lashed down in the cramped hold. Each knot tied, each seam sealed, was a silent prayer, a desperate act to ensure their vessel, christened the Vengeance by some, was truly seaworthy for the colossal journey ahead. Under a sky as black as their desperation, the moment of truth arrived. The ship, the Vengeance, had to be moved from its secret berth, a sandy depression in the cove, to the open sea. This was a monumental task, a gamble against detection and the raw power of the tides. With the prison's searchlights sweeping the horizon, the men, muscles screaming, strained against thick hemp ropes. Using logs as rollers, lubricated with stolen whale oil, they heaved and pushed, the groan of wood echoing in the silent night. Every inch was a battle, a dance with gravity and time. The waves, gentle until now, seemed to surge with anticipation. One misstep, one snapped rope, and the Vengeance could be crushed against the rocks, their dreams shattered before it even began. Their hearts pounded, keeping time with the crashing waves. As the first hint of dawn brushed the eastern sky, painting the horizon in bruised purples and grays, the Vengeance finally slipped into the embrace of the ocean. The men, their faces etched with exhaustion and disbelief, silently hoisted the crudely fashioned canvas sail. No cheer, no shout, just a collective, shaky breath as the wind caught the cloth, pulling them away from the desolate shore. The island, their prison for so long, slowly receded into a dark, unforgiving silhouette. For the first time in years, perhaps decades, they were truly free, or so they hoped. The vast, indifferent ocean stretched before them, an endless expanse of unknown dangers, but also boundless possibilities. This was the true beginning of their epic, audacious crossing, a desperate sprint towards a future they could only dream of. The initial exhilaration of escape quickly gave way to the harsh realities of life at sea aboard their makeshift vessel. The vastness of the ocean, once a symbol of freedom, now felt like an oppressive, boundless emptiness. Seasickness claimed many, leaving them weak and despairing. The crude tiller, fashioned from a scavenged oar, demanded constant attention, battling currents and unseen swells. Elias, their unofficial captain, established a strict watch rotation, demanding vigilance against lurking storms and passing ships. Water was rationed, each sip a reminder of their precarious existence. They were at the mercy of the elements, novices in an environment that tolerated no mistakes. The island, though out of sight, still cast a long shadow, a constant, nagging fear that they might be hunted, or worse, that they had simply traded one prison for another, a floating one, with the sea as its walls. The ocean, a serene blue canvas just days before, soon revealed its true, terrifying power. A distant, darkening line on the horizon rapidly escalated into a monstrous tempest. The sky turned an ominous, bruised purple, pregnant with fury. Winds howled like a banshee, tearing at their crude sails, threatening to shred them to ribbons. Massive waves, towering mountains of water, crashed over the deck, turning their fragile vessel into a mere plaything, a cork in a maelstrom. Every man clung to whatever he could, yelling unheard prayers above the deafening roar. Rain lashed down, blinding and cold, filling the boat faster than they could bail. This was no ordinary storm. It was the ocean's brutal test, a raw, primeval force threatening to reclaim them, dragging their hopes of freedom to a watery grave. When the storm finally abated, leaving behind a bruised sky and a heaving sea, it also revealed the devastating toll. The mast, though not broken, was dangerously splintered, threatening to collapse with a next strong gust. More critically, the hull had suffered, a vital seam now weeping seawater steadily into the hold. Despair threatened to engulf them, but there was no time for it. With remarkable ingenuity born of desperation, the men, battered but resolute, set about immediate repairs. Using strips of canvas salvaged from a shredded sail, hammered into place with a stone, and sealed with a mixture of tar and their dwindling candle wax, they patched the leak. The splintered mast was lashed with every available length of rope, transforming it into a patchwork column of defiance. Each repair was a testament to their unbreakable will, a refusal to surrender to the sea. Days bled into weeks, and the sun's relentless gaze slowly dried out their last vestiges of hope. The hardtack became a memory, the dried fish long gone. The precious water casks, once a symbol of life, now stood empty, rattling hollowly with every sway of the boat. Thirst became a torment, parching throats and clouding minds. The men, once strong and vibrant, were reduced to gaunt specters, their eyes hollow, skin cracked, and bodies weak. Conversations dwindled to whispers, energy conserved for the endless scanning of the horizon, for land, for rain, for anything. The vast ocean, once a path to freedom, now felt like an endless, liquid desert, slowly but surely claiming them. The specter of starvation and thirst, a far more insidious enemy than any prison guard, tightened its grip, threatening to extinguish their audacious dream forever. Just as despair threatened to consume them entirely, a miraculous shift occurred. A change in the wind, a sudden darkening on the western horizon, brought with it the promise of relief. The parched sky, after weeks of relentless sun, finally wept. First, hesitant drops, then a deluge, washing over their cracked lips and desperate faces. Every available cloth, every spare bucket, was unfurled to capture the life-giving rainwater, a divine intervention from the heavens. And then, as if the ocean itself decided to grant them a reprieve, a school of fish, shimmering silver, appeared beneath their hull. With renewed, if weak, energy, the men fashioned makeshift hooks and lines from scavenged metal and rope, pulling in enough sustenance to stave off immediate collapse. These moments of unexpected fortune were not an end to their ordeal, but a crucial lifeline, buying them more precious days in their impossible quest for land. Their salvation, if it was to come, would depend on a skill as old as humanity's venture onto the seas, celestial navigation. On board the makeshift vessel, dubbed the Freedom's Dawn by its desperate crew, there was no sophisticated GPS, no radio, only the raw, untamed canvas of the night sky. Captain Yannick, a former merchant sailor imprisoned for dissent, became their reluctant oracle. With memories of ancient charts and a crude, sextant fashioned from scavenged metal and glass, he meticulously charted their course. Each clear night, his gaze pierced the inky blackness, seeking familiar constellations, the Southern Cross, Orion, the faint glow of the Milky Way. Every star was a beacon, every planet a potential guidepost in the vast, featureless expanse, a silent, cosmic map whispering direction to their fragile hope. But the ocean, in its endless indifference, was a relentless psychological combatant. Weeks blurred into months, and the initial euphoria of escape slowly gave way to a creeping, insidious despair. The vast, empty horizon became a mirror reflecting their deepest fears: starvation, thirst, and the chilling prospect of a slow, agonizing death. Hope, a flickering candle in the soul, was constantly threatened by the overwhelming darkness of the unknown. Arguments erupted over dwindling rations. Silence descended in weary resignation. Every sunrise was a reminder of another day survived, but also another day without land. The mental fortitude of these men was tested as fiercely as their physical endurance, battling not just the elements, but the insidious enemy within, the gnawing doubt that freedom was just another cruel illusion. Just as despair threatened to consume them, the ocean, in its capricious way, would offer tantalizing whispers of hope. After an eternity of featureless blue, a sudden flurry of activity, a distant seabird, its wings an impossible white against the deep sky, a piece of driftwood, impossibly complex with barnacles, or a subtle change in the water's color, from deep indigo to a lighter, clearer emerald. Each sighting was a jolt, a collective gasp of renewed energy. Was it a sign, or merely the ocean's cruel jest? Eyes, strained and red from endless scanning, would fixate on the horizon, searching for that one elusive smudge that wasn't a cloud, but the promise of solid ground. These fleeting moments, though often leading to false hope, were enough to reignite the dwindling flames of their resolve. The greatest danger, however, often came not from the elements, but from man himself. One sweltering afternoon, a cry pierced the monotonous silence. Ship on the horizon. Every head snapped towards the distant smudge. A vessel, larger and faster than their own, was unmistakably approaching. Panic rippled through the Freedom's dawn. Was a rescue? Or the very colonial patrol they had so painstakingly evaded? Every choice was fraught with peril. To approach meant possible salvation, but also certain recapture, a return to the hell they had escaped. To hide meant risking being overlooked, or worse, being spotted and pursued. A tense, whispered debate ensued. Their lives hinged on a single, desperate decision: confront the unknown or vanish into the ocean's vast anonymity and pray they wouldn't be seen. The endless voyage stretched on, each day a carbon copy of the last, distinguished only by the sun's trajectory and the relentless swell of the ocean. The passage of time ceased to be a measure of hours or days, but an internal, almost spiritual endurance test. They lived by the sun and stars, their bodies adapting to a rhythm dictated by the sea. The days were spent bailing water, mending sails, rationing food, and staring out at the unchanging horizon. Nights were a struggle against cold and fear. The concept of home became a distant, almost mythical whisper. Weeks turned into months, each one adding another layer of grit and grime, another notch of mental resilience to their collective being. Their journey wasn't just physical. It was a profound, almost primal redefinition of human limits. With every passing day, the immense weight of their collective fate bore down on Captain Yearning. He was their compass, their map, the solitary figure shouldering the impossible burden of guiding them across an unforgiving world. While others slept, Yearning would be awake, hunched over his makeshift charts, cross-referencing celestial readings, his brow furrowed with the immense pressure. A single miscalculation, a moment of doubt, could mean disaster, pushing them off course into uncharted waters, or worse, back into the clutches of their pursuers. His own exhaustion was irrelevant. The lives of every man on board depended on his unwavering precision, his memory, and his almost mystical connection to the cosmos. He was the anchor of their hope, and his silent struggle was perhaps the most profound of all. Then, one morning, after what felt like an eternity, the impossible became real. A cry, initially a whisper, then a roar, erupted from the masthead. "Land ahoy!" Every man surged to the rail, eyes straining against the morning glare. And there it was, not a mirage, not a cloud, but an unmistakable, verdant smudge on the horizon, the vibrant green of trees, the soft brown of earth. It was a vision of paradise, a promise of salvation. Tears streamed down sun-baked faces, men embraced, collapsing in overwhelmed relief. The psychological torment of the endless ocean vanished in an instant, replaced by a pure, unadulterated euphoria. After months adrift, after battling storms, hunger, and despair, freedom was no longer a distant dream, but a tangible, beckoning reality. Even with land in sight, the ordeal was far from over. The last mile proved to be as treacherous as any storm. Uncharted reefs lurked beneath the deceptively calm waters. Powerful currents threatened to pull their fragile craft away, and the unknown coastline presented its own formidable challenges. Captain Yearning, despite his own exhaustion, remained vigilant, his eyes now scanning for breaking waves, submerged rocks, and safe passage. The crew, rejuvenated by the sight of land, pulled on oars with renewed vigor, navigating through shallows and avoiding jagged formations. Every splash, every shift in the current was met with intense focus. Finally, with a soft scrape, the keel touched sand. They had done it. They had cheated death, outsmarted their captors, and crossed an impossible ocean to claim their freedom, stepping on his solid ground at last. After 49 grueling days adrift, the makeshift vessel, christened the Hope by its desperate builders, finally scraped against the soft sand of an unknown shore. The year was 1888. A collective gasp, then a raw, primal cheer, erupted from the emaciated crew. One by one, men like Captain Elias Thorne and the ingenious carpenter Finian, stumbled from their vessel, their legs trembling not from the sea's roll, but from the unaccustomed solidity beneath their feet. The sun, a beacon of their unlikely survival, beat down on a pristine beach, an antithesis to the desolate rock they had fled. Each hesitant step, each footprint etched in the sand, was a silent, powerful declaration. They were no longer prisoners. They were free. The vast, indifferent ocean that had been their tormentor was now their unlikely liberator, having carried them to this improbable new beginning. The euphoria of landing quickly gave way to a fresh set of challenges. These were not the welcoming shores of a known civilization. As the sun dipped, painting the sky in fiery hues, the escapees cautiously ventured inland. They soon encountered the island's indigenous inhabitants, a small community living in harmony with the abundant nature. Suspicion was palpable on both sides. The locals, never before seeing men like these, clad in the remnants of prison uniforms, eyed them with a mix of curiosity and wariness. Language was an immediate, insurmountable barrier. Gestures and crude drawings became their only means of communication. How would they explain their past, their impossible journey, their very existence? The promise of freedom was here, but acceptance, shelter, and a new life would be a hard-won battle, far from the simple act of touching solid ground. While they had escaped the physical confines of the island of no return, the journey had irrevocably etched itself upon their very being. The physical scars of their captivity and the arduous voyage, the whip marks, the sun-baked skin, the missing fingers of Carpenter Finian, were visible reminders. But deeper still were the psychological wounds. The constant fear, the hunger, the unimaginable choices made during their escape left an invisible weight. Adapting to a world where they were no longer chattel, but free men, took time and immense effort. Many struggled with the simplest freedoms, haunted by memories of the colony. Some, like Elias Thorne, embraced their new lives, finding purpose in honest work and building families. Others never truly shed the shadow of their past, forever carrying the solitude and survival instincts forged in the crucible of their extraordinary ordeal. The story of the Hope and its audacious crew, though born of desperation and courage, became more than just a tale of survival. It transformed into an enduring legend, passed down through generations on this remote island. The descendants of those who found freedom and the indigenous people who eventually accepted them ensured the narrative never faded. It served as a powerful testament to the human spirit's indomitable will, its capacity for ingenuity against impossible odds, and the universal yearning for liberty. Their incredible maritime escape, a journey from bondage to belonging, resonated across time, reminding us that even from the most desolate island of no return, the human heart can still forge a path to freedom, leaving behind a legacy that inspires long after the last wave has broken on the shore. From the desolate shores of the island of no return, where hope was a luxury few could afford, we have journeyed alongside these extraordinary prisoners. We witnessed their clandestine struggle, the ingenious crafting of a vessel from stolen fragments, and the heart-stopping moment they slipped their moorings, trading the certainty of confinement for the terrifying uncertainty of the open sea. Their voyage was a brutal testament to endurance, a battle against unforgiving elements, relentless hunger, and the constant threat of discovery. But against every conceivable odd, they arrived, battered, exhausted, but gloriously, undeniably free. Their saga is more than just an escape. It's a profound exploration of the human condition. It illuminates the unyielding power of resilience, the incredible capacity for collective ingenuity when faced with impossible challenges, and the fierce, indomitable will to survive. This was a triumph of the spirit over oppression, a testament to the idea that even in the most desperate circumstances, the yearning for liberty can ignite the most audacious of plans. The story of these men, who literally built their own destiny from the wreckage of their lives, stands as an enduring beacon. It reminds us that freedom is not merely a political concept, but a fundamental human drive that can propel individuals to achieve the seemingly impossible. As we reflect on their daring journey, we are left with a lasting sense of inspiration and wonder, a powerful testament to the audacity of hope and the unbreakable human spirit that, even when chained, will always strive to sail towards the horizon.